can't say that now.
My name is Lisa Rosenthal, and I'm joined today by my co-founder and partner, Bruce Libman, and our colleague, David Klyman. Welcome, David.
Thank you, Lisa and Bruce.
It's good to have you here. I'm going to turn over the reins to Bruce today. I'm excited about the conversation and to be able to sit back and just listen. Bruce, it's all yours.
You know, David, I was in your business years ago.
Yep.
Okay? So I want to begin by asking you, what path did you take to get you into financial services today?
So I work with my son. He actually started our business probably about 9 years ago. He was brought into it by the lead estate planning specialist at Merrill Lynch, who got on his own, was looking for a successor, brought my son in. My son ended up buying him out, and I was working for a hedge fund at the time. And my son asked me to leave the hedge fund and come and join him in the business, which I did. I had just my background, and when I'm talking with my son, he doesn't let me talk about it because it's like too long as I'm older. But I've had many different careers. I was in the jewelry business for many years. I was in watches that was before the hedge fund. So I've been in many different industries over the years, but came back to finance in the hedge fund and then went to join my son.
And when did you make that decision?
So that was about, I was 7 years at the hedge fund, and it's been about 7 years ago since I joined my son. So I left, I was working for a watch company at one point in Williamsburg and on the road. I've been in sales all my life. So to me, you know, I have my MBA. So to me, it's like just different industries, same thing. And you know, Bruce, you've been in the business too, as sales. When you're in sales as a professional salesperson, you know that it's the same thing. Just the question is the terminology and the product and how you approach the client, but sales is sales. So been in sales for 40 years and different products. But when you get to my age now, you know, you want to do something that you enjoy more. You don't need you're not stressing as much. Almost all my kids are out of the house. I have 6 kids. Almost all of them are out of the house, but they all are working, which I'm super happy about that. They're off the payroll mostly. My last son is looking for an apartment now, so I'll believe it when I see it, when he moves out. But let's see what happens with that. But it's different lifestyle now. I don't have the same financial pressure I had when they were going. I'm Orthodox, so they all go into private schools. You've got private tuition to pay all those years. Yeah. You're going to different synagogues, so you've got those payments to make. Everybody wants the building fund. It's a stressful time. So now it's different. They're out of the house, and you know, my wife retired. She was in the jewelry business for many years. She retired, but now she got bored. So she went back to be a teacher's assistant in the local school, which was good for me because now the house is empty all day.
That's great. Okay. So you've been an entrepreneur your whole life?
My whole life, yeah. It really comes also, my father, who was a CPA, but he also was an entrepreneur for many years, 20 years, 25 years. He had his own like penny stock brokerage firm in Toronto. I grew up in Canada. I was born in Canada. So he was an entrepreneur. My grandmother in Toronto, who had come over from Europe, you know, before the Second World War, she also opened up her own ladies underwear store in the Junction part of Toronto before the Second World War, and did very well. Her husband, my grandfather, which I didn't know, he passed away when I was 8 years old, but he would be like a tailor, and eventually she said, just come and join me in the store. So, you know, she ran that store. She ran the family, you know, she was the tough one. So it comes down all the way through.
It's in the genes.
I think so.
It's definitely in the genes.
Klymans don't like to be told what to do. So, you know, how are we going to manage with that?
Well, you know, we always have bosses around us somehow or another. Okay. You are a married man. So, you know, we all have bosses. Okay.
We all have bosses, of course.
So, yeah, I want to ask you this question because you've been an entrepreneur your whole life. Your family is really in the DNA of being an entrepreneur. What do you think the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make in their career?
For me, I could say that you want to be if you were an entrepreneur in your DNA, you want to be that all the time. Like you just, you know, if let's say you're working in a corporation, you just want to go on your own. And I sometimes think that you're not quite as prepared as you should be. when you start off at a new company, you're never going to have more. It takes, when in business school, they say it takes 2 years before you break even. So you have to make sure you have enough cash flow. You have to make sure you have enough money in the bank to last that. And it's got to be like a provable idea that of what you're doing, right? The economics have to be correct behind it. But sometimes you can ignore that because of your desire to go on your own. It's like, like Bruce, like you're saying, if everybody knew what it was like to be married, maybe they never would.
Gentlemen, I'm so sorry to interject here, but I think that entrepreneurs, there's something in the DNA that it's very different. You can have a senior level executive that runs a $200 million P&L, but unless they have to write the check for payroll, right? Unless they have to think about what's happening in the next 6 months, take a second mortgage on the house to make payroll because they believe in themselves and the business and they know it's just a gap. There's a very visceral reaction to having to do that because you can be a high-level executive and really run hundreds of millions of dollars and be very, very successful. That's very different than somebody that has to figure out how to cover payroll and puts their employees first to make sure the business is everybody is still in good shape. And then, of course, all those difficult decisions, sometimes of layoffs and sometimes of, cutting staff and changing operational things. But entrepreneurs, I do believe you have to have the stomach for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're talking, I was just thinking, so my youngest son, he works in logistics at a tile company. This is his first real job. He went to Rutgers and it's his first real job. He comes back and he says, oh, now I'm thinking about these tiles all the time. Like, it's not his own business, but he's into it. So how do you stop thinking about that? Because he always sees me like, I'll be working at 10 o'clock at night if I need to. I'll be working on a Sunday on a call, whatever it takes. So he says, how do you 5 o'clock? I just want to leave it at home. But the entrepreneur, that was the first thing I noticed when I went on my own, is that it doesn't stop, right? You can't leave it at 5 o'clock. You can't leave it. You're thinking about it 24/7. Even on Shabbat, I'm thinking about it. I can't do anything about it, which makes it sometimes harder, but you're thinking about it all the time. You never stop that. Exactly what you're saying, Lisa, because you have that pressure. So that you have to have the stomach for, like Bruce, you were saying, you have to have that stomach for it to be able to continue it, because things are going to crash. Things are always going to be. So in our business, we call it the certainty of uncertainty, right? We apply it to investment, but it really is part of life. We know there's going to be something that's going to happen you're not expecting. And that happens throughout life. It could happen on a health scare. It could happen with something with your kid. My grandson was in the hospital last Thursday night with some huge allergy attack. You never know what's going to happen. There's always something that's going to happen that you're not going to be expected. If you can't take it, if you don't have the stomach for it, that's not for you.
So there's something that I share with clients all the time, which is you have to be uncomfortable. You have to be comfortable being uncomfortable, because as a business owner, your only job all day, every day is solving problems.
Correct.
That's what we do. You solve problems. And then when the unexpected happens, you have to be able to pivot. So you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable.
Correct. So that's really that's what we've really based our practice on, is helping those people, not on the full thing. We're going to help somebody that has a health scare or whatnot, but on the financial side, we want to be that advisor to help them when they're uncomfortable and to guide them through that. And we really position ourselves for those people that have nowhere else to go to ask those kind of questions, because we find that you can't really ask the CPA. The CPAs are really looking historically. They're not looking ahead. So where do they go when they have that uncertainty and that something happens that they're not expecting? Who do they ask for to get that kind of perspective? Like, we'll have a client and she'll be a dentist or whatever, and she'll say, oh, I've got, a certain amount of student debt and it really worries me. So how much do you have? Oh, I've got $30,000. Oh, well, we've got clients that have $400,000 of student debt, and we'll give her that perspective and that objectivity. And we'll say, you know what? Well, your $30,000 really is not that much. And here's how we're going to solve it over time. Let's do the budgeting. Let's do the financial fact find. That's what we do to help those people. And it's amazing. I always remember this case. We had a client come in, a referral from a CPA. She used a psychiatrist, husband, a cardiologist, probably making about $600 between the two of them. She comes in with a little pink booklet with all her expenses written down, and the pages are flying and it's loose and she's putting it together. She's trying to tell us, this is what I'm making, this is what I'm putting it together. And she says, I know we're making money, I just don't know where it goes every month. First thing, just put it down on a spreadsheet, easy spreadsheet. She must have had 35 line items, and then we figured out, you know what, you've got 3 babysitters and your 2 kids are already at school all day long. So, that's a place that you could probably cut back on, but she says, you know what, I'm happy to know that, but they're like family, I don't want to. So, but at least now, now at least you're able to have the strategy to go against it, because now you know what your information is. And once we're able to put everything together and you see it black and white, it becomes much less scary. And the other part is that we always find also is this: somebody will come to us and say, I don't have very much money. I don't have very much. And then we'll be doing the fact find again, and we'll go through it and we'll say, oh, but I've got 100,000 in this bank. Oh, and I forgot about this 150 I have in this investment account. Oh, and I have this 401k that I had at another company. There's 250 there. Turns out like she didn't even realize herself she's probably got $1 million. And then once you see it listed, it becomes a much different activity and exercise than it did before, when she's just scared of the unknown and you don't know what's going on.
David, what is some of the things that you really love to do? Because clearly Klyman Financial and you and your son, your business, you're really good at what you do.
Thank you.
So take that, we'll put it on the shelf for a minute. What are some of the things you love to do? Tell us more about you outside of work.
So, I mean, I'm Orthodox. That's who I am. I didn't grow up Orthodox. I became it in my early 20s. I was in Israel and yeshiva for a couple of years there. I met my wife there. So it really centers a lot around, I have 6 kids. So it really centers a lot around my kids and the grandchildren, but also my Orthodox lifestyle. Like there's such a thing as, every night you're supposed to learn, the Talmud. So I do that. So that there's something I do online from Israel. It's every night. So I try to do that as much as I can. And then, the other parts are just to relax and be with the kids and 5 grandsons. My oldest son lives down the street from me. So with his three kids, he has a gym. So I was at the gym this morning. So, it seems like it's pretty busy all the time. And I think as we get older, it's even more important to exercise. And my trainer has me. My son doesn't train me because he's too expensive for me. But the other trainer, he wants me to run like a 5K. So Sunday I'm running like he's got me at 0.25 miles and then half a mile, then 3/4 of a mile on the treadmill. And that knocks me out for like 3 days.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, I say to him, and it's a very interesting guy because his name is Nick, give him a shout out, whatever. And he's deaf. They can hear you when you speak to him. So my son introduces me to him, says, Nick, this is going to be your trainer. I'm talking to him, and then he turns around and walks away from me, and I'm talking to him still. I say to my son, Nick, he's a good trainer, but he's a little bit stupid. I'm talking to him. He doesn't answer. He says, no, he's deaf. He can't hear you.
Oh.
He can't hear you. Like if you speak like this directly, like he can read lips. He's got hearing aids. He can do, but he's like this big, he does these he's strongman lifts and everything. So he's a very funny guy.
So you're going to do a 5K.
He wants me to do a 5K. He's got me signed up in June 1st. He's going to go with me. My son's going to go with me, but I don't really want to go.
You really got to train for that. You really
that's
do.
what he's doing to me. He's training me.
All right.
But I prefer not to.
So, David, it sounds to me like the things you love to do are all centered around family.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful. And you're blessed to have, family. Not everybody's that fortunate.
Thank you.
And to have folks, family that's close by and around. And I know you work with your son, which is great.
Right. So my oldest son is down the street. My daughter moved to St. Petersburg. She's an attorney at Raymond James. Then my third son, he's an engineer. He lives in Tel Aviv. So there's a lot going on there right now. So I'm a little concerned with him. My mother-in-law lives in Herzliya. So a little bit concerned with that as well. And then my fourth son, he lives on the Upper East Side. My other son, he just actually finished his CPA. He passed his 4th exam. So he's around. He's working at Price Waterhouse. And then the other son, the twin I mentioned, is at the tile company. He lives at home.
Sounds like everybody's got a passion for a pretty high level profession.
When I was growing up, and a lot of it, I give a lot of credit, obviously, to my wife, but the other part of it is that when we were growing up, we struggled a little bit financially. It wasn't so easy with the different expenses. I had my own business. I was in the jewelry business. I had my own business there. I was going to be partners with my father-in-law, who was from Afghanistan. My mother-in-law, who's still alive today, is from Iran. And so my father-in-law was in the jewelry business also. He was living in Italy. We were going to be partners, but we did that for many years also. But I was supposed to be partners with him, but that didn't really work out.
That's so interesting. Your family's from interesting parts of the world.
So my family, my parents were born in Toronto.
It's your wife's family.
My wife's family.
She's your family. So I kind of put you together there.
You can.
It's very interesting. And so the next question I have for you is really about relationships, because no doubt, personally, your relationships are deep and strong and they're committed, and your whole world is centered around your family and those relationships. But what's it like professionally? Because I suspect in all the iterations of your career, you have some people that are still in your world. So what's it like, and maybe some thoughts about how you build and maintain long-term relationships?
Well, again, what you're saying is correct. I still have the most relationship now, business-wise, as well as with my son that I work with. We've been together already 7 years. We moved down from Toronto in the early 90s. I moved down with 4 of my kids, my twins, the last 2 are twins. They were born here. But a lot of the relationships I had in Toronto, we don't really keep up with that. Even though there is, on June 16th, there is a reunion of my kindergarten class from Toronto that I may go to. I'm still considering it. There's one of the fellows there, put it all together. He's got a whole list of all the students from my kindergarten. Like, I went to what's called the United Synagogue Day School in Toronto. So he has the list and he's kept up. He's a partner at one of the law firms in Toronto. So he sent out an invitation. He just sent me a reminder today about it. That's why I was thinking about it. But you could look down the list of all the people that I went to, that I was at school with in those years, which you talk about long-term relationships. That's quite something. When I was at the hedge fund, there was someone on the desk with me. I'm still very friendly with him. He opened up his own hedge fund afterwards. He's in Passaic, not so far. I'm very close with him still. Try to go for lunch with him like once a month. I'm not sure if that's what you're after, but
Look, we're all about, the name of the podcast is, Ultimate Client Strategy. Clients, no matter what profession you're in, we each have our own way, our own strategy, our own style of maintaining relationships long-term. There are things that some of us do that other people say, who has time for that? I'll just quickly, Bruce and I used to run something called the Young Executives Resource Group. Remember, Bruce?
Yeah.
Do you remember one of our young people, what they said? You had introduced him to a really high-level professional in his field, which we won't talk about, but in his profession. And one of the questions that high-level person asked him was, what do you do for your clients? Now, I'm going to tell you his response in a second, to stay in touch. And so that high-level person came back to Bruce and I and said, this is not anyone I could ever work with. As a matter of fact, he was so disrespectful. He took 2 hours of my time, didn't even say thank you. Now, you remember that? Bruce and I were horrified because we asked this gentleman to do us a favor, right? And to talk and maybe mentor this younger person. But his response was, oh, I have too many clients. It would cost too much to do anything for them. I think that Bruce and I think we rethought the whole program at that point.
yeah, that's a disturbing result.
It's a disturbing answer, right?
Yeah, very disturbing.
Yes. So, we all have different things we do.
So, what we do for our clients, and I think I mentioned this, is that we have a little card game that we play. So it's a deck of 52 cards with 52 values on them. So that's our first step with any client. They'll go through the cards, they'll come up with what their top values are. And that we're going to use throughout, and what we do is we do an annual review. We put them in our CRM. They get a reminder, every year to sign up for their review. And we'll have that in their file, like this, like you said at that time you wanted to retire at 65 and be independent. because we'll make sure the goals are aligned with values. And then we've done our whole financial fact find and their budget. So we've got all the pieces together on that side. And then we'll come back, they'll say, okay, you wanted to retire, and we have certain software that will project what they need. So the client will say, okay, I want independence. I want to be retired at age 55. Okay, so what do you need to do financially to get to that, to reach that goal? So we'll put that into the right capital software, come out, and then, this is what you need to do. So let's say we're doing a review with them 3-4 years later. They come, oh, I want to buy a Ferrari, or I want to whatever I want to do. I says, well, we're thinking that's going to blow up your plan, but of course it's your money. You can do what you want, but let's take a look how that it's going to affect you. You said you wanted to retire at age 55. You spend $200,000 on this Ferrari. Now you're talking about 58, 59. Are you okay with that? That's, you see, is the effect on your full plan. And you said you wanted to be family, you wanted protection. So what about your life insurance? Do you need something for long-term care? You want to have all of that covered, that you said family was important to you, or protection. Some people will say, when you talk about insurance, I won't be here, so I don't care. Right. But those are not the responsible people.
I heard that story 2 years ago. Yeah, we can compare war stories together. All right. But you have a deck of cards that somebody goes through.
We'll do it with them.
That is brilliant.
Yeah. Nobody else is doing it, and something
I
remember about us.
Never heard of it.
Yeah,
that is really
that's what
cool.
we have a designation called BFA, which is Behavioral Financial Advisors, and that's where we pick that up. And you'll see if you go on our website that everything really is geared towards that type of idea, to do a value assessment, to go make sure your goals are aligned. And so we're trying to get to know, I don't know, I think it comes across. What you see with me is what you get. I'm a black and white kind of guy. I'm not here to play games.
I think one of the things that I'm learning today from you is that you are a solution provider, right? That's your goal and objective with people. And your approach is not, quote, a sales approach.
Correct.
It's an approach of a relationship.
Correct.
Right. And I think, again, that's part of your history.
And Bruce, and that is part of my history, and that's what I want to do. It comes in with who I am, my Orthodox Jewishness, that's the whole thing. This is, if I don't do it this way, I'm not interested. I just want to do it. Like you helped me yourself, Bruce. You remember at the beginning, I had a client in Florida. They needed to do a will. You introduced me to Bill. Bill ended up joining. We're talking about some insurance for him as well. But my client was very happy. I don't make any money off of that, but I'm happy to make that introduction.
And do the right thing for the client, right?
Yeah, make sure it's correct. Make sure
right thing.
Because these people don't have anywhere else to go. They don't have anybody else to talk to. Like, who else are they where are they gonna go on Google and look for a trust and estate attorney?
Oh, God.
Who knows what they're gonna get?
No.
Who knows because that's the alternative. That's why you need someone, and when you talk to someone, especially about life insurance, as you know, Bruce, you're talking about them and in the most intimate and scary parts of their life. I'm not like making them scared. You care about your family and you don't have any insurance. You're crazy. That's not what we're about. You need the protection. God forbid something should happen. That everybody understands, but you don't want to make it like overly scary. It doesn't have to be. It could be like, if you look at some of our marketing material, we're best over the kitchen table. Like my wife and my son and myself and the husband and wife, and we're there at the kitchen table, 7 o'clock at night. Sometimes I wouldn't get home till like midnight because it'd be in Long Island and drop him off afterwards. And, it's 10 o'clock at night because we're with the client till 9, 10 o'clock. And that's what it is.
I always looked at it as a transfer of risk. That's how I always looked at life insurance when I was working with clients. It's a transfer of risk.
The transfer of risk.
And change is inevitable every day. Everything changes. All right. Nothing stays the same. All right.
That's why we call it the certainty of uncertainty.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
this
David,
has been a great conversation.
Yeah, I'm happy you're happy.
well, you know what it is? Doing this podcast is really a pleasure for Bruce and I, because we get to share all of the people we work with, that we support, that we think are terrific at what they do. And we get to talk to you in a way that other people get to know you too. So
correct. Our podcast is the same. I mean, my son that I work with, Yair, he was a lone soldier in Israel when he out of high school. After high school, he was in the Israeli army for 1.5 years. So he was in that area where they attacked. and he knew some of the families. So some of our podcasts after October 7th, a lot of our podcasts went and interviewed some of the Israelis. We had one woman who was killed by the Jaffa Gate in Jerusalem after she ended up defending. So we interviewed her mother and her father afterwards just to get to know what kind of woman she was. So that touched us pretty deeply, and a lot of our content went that way then.
I think it touched all of us deeply, whether you're Jewish, Orthodox, whether you're Israeli, whether you're,
Absolutely.
that event and the subsequent cultural shifts that have happened since. I think if you are just a caring, feeling human, and there's lots of perspective and lots of things that have changed, but the events of that day were so horrific that I don't think any person that understands what happened that day is left untouched. But on a more positive note, there are lots of gifts that have come from.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on that note, I'm going to say thank you again so much for joining us.
My pleasure.
So we're going to share with everyone that is listening to this. We'll give them your contact information. But what's the best way to contact you?
Just my cell phone I give it?
Sure.
201-898-6960 is my cell. Just call me or text me directly. My email is david@klymanfinancial.com. We spell Klyman a little bit differently. It's Klyman, and my father tells me it's because when my grandfather came over, he was too lazy to do EI, so he just did a Y. It's about the only thing I know about my grandfather when he came over, except for that, but that tells you a lot. It's at david@klymanfinancial.com. My cell phone you have. Check us out on our website. Book a time with me right on my Calendly. You can find it right on our website. It's klymanfinancial.com. You can check out our podcast. And that's it.
Come and play cards with David Klyman.
I think that's awesome.